Welcome to the Ellis Martin Report. Today we're looking at one of the most important stories in the global critical mineral space, antimony, rare earths, and the urgent need for a secure U.S. supply chain. Joining me is Greg Schifrin, president of Minex Corporation and a seasoned geologist leading Great Northern Minerals exploration efforts here in the United States. Great Northern Minerals trades on the ASX in Australia under the symbol GNM. Full disclosure, I'm also the U.S. Strategic Advisor for Great Northern Minerals, helping the company expand its presence and partnerships here in North America. Together, we'll discuss GNM's Catalyst Ridge project near California's Mountain Pass mine, one of the richest rare earth belts in the country. Greg, welcome back to the program. It's great to visit with you today, my friend.
Great to be here.
Greg, when you first looked at Catalyst Ridge as a geologist, what stood out to you immediately? What made you say, you know what, this one's worth serious attention?
Well, one of the main reasons, at least for my recommendations to Great Northern and Catalyst Ridge, was they were in the right location. From my previous work in the district, working for their neighbor Loxley, I knew that there was a north-south trend on these rare earth deposits, and so I figured that there was a chance by continuing on the ground to the north that there could be additional discovery. And so that was the driver. But the other piece that happened was we were in a place called Antimony Gulch. So there was always the question and the concept that we knew that Loxley had a small antimony prospect mine on their property, that there could be other antimony. There were other shafts and prospects scattered around. And I'm assuming historically, in the region got its name Antimony Gulch was because of the presence of the antimony there.
That only makes sense. Now, you have seen personally some very high-grade antimony at surface. From your geological perspective, once again, what gives you real confidence that this isn't just a surface phenomenon?
Before Christmas of last year of 2025, I went out and looked at the Catalyst Ridge property, or it's a lease that's a pending lease they have with the state of California. So it's in process to be their property. I did get an email today from the state confirming that things were moving forward with it. They have a few questions, but that's normal. What was discovered was some historic antimony prospects, a small shaft and a tunnel, and we're talking massive antimony. We're not talking about, a little piece. So there's significant antimony veins, there's silver, and some amounts of gold. And what we believe is going on there is that on surface, we can see a 1 kilometer trend from the surface. When you get up on top, when you stand on the structure and look up it, you can see the quartz veining for a kilometer going to the north on their ground. So that's a pretty significant structural geological signature that's real, that's on the ground. And on the south end, we are seeing veins of antimony with the silver and gold that's prevalent and high grade. I think we have assays up in the 7 to 8% range of antimony in those veins with some multi-ounce silver and some gram numbers of gold. I don't have the assays in front of me, so I'm just going off of memory. But there's significant mineralization. And to have it in a kilometer structure means there's some size to this thing. And the antimony gets weaker as you go north, but the geological concept is that the south end is kind of lower and there's been faulting and movement, and we're seeing higher up in the system rocks where there's less mineral, and we believe that if we can drill down into this, we'll find significant antimony, silver, and gold. That's the concept that we have for this ground that we have there on the Catalyst Ridge property.
Let's talk about the Mountain Pass district in general. And for listeners who aren't geologists, how does Catalyst Ridge fit into the broader Mountain Pass district? Are we looking at an isolated occurrence? I think we've already covered that. We don't think so. Or part of a much larger system, perhaps one that Mountain Pass itself might be interested in acquiring down the road. And that's pure speculation on my part. We don't know.
Mountain Pass has the mine. They're the largest company in the district. So if they were considering consolidation, they could absorb all the different smaller projects and have a much larger exploration package there to explore for additional ore bodies. But to go back to your beginning question, the Mountain Pass rare earth element REE trend was recently in 2019 identified by the USGS as being a zone that was 10 or 12 kilometers in length by 2 kilometers in width. And it basically extends from I-15 by the mine, by Mountain Pass, going up to the north. north-northwest, almost due north, but north-northwest. And that whole trend is a geological package of rock that's very old, 1.5 billion, 4-year old is the age dating on the carbonatite rare earth bodies there. And I believe, if my memory serves me correct from that report, they believe there were 3 different pulses of rare earth mineralization in those rocks going back to around 1.4 billion years old. So you have the right geology, you have the occurrences. Now the big question, which all these junior companies in there are doing, is what else hasn't been discovered? And then the question is, how do you discover these things? And so there's various techniques that you can use to try to pinpoint where to focus, but it's a large piece of geography. It's hundreds of square kilometers of ground, and you're trying to find something that's a couple of feet wide, maybe at surface if you're lucky, that might be hundreds of meters in depth. A pretty hard thing to find out there. And mostly what we use, just not to give away any of our trade secrets, is we use scintillometers and XRFs in our exploration, because usually the rare earths come along with thorium. So we use the thorium and the radioactive signature to try to pinpoint where those occurrences are, and then we come in and do more detailed work using an XRF to kind of assay in the field exactly what we're seeing on the ground and try to put the story together.
So does that technology minimize much of the risk, the early stage risk of early stage exploration?
No, it helps the guy with the boots on the ground significantly pinpoint where they might have an occurrence. Because otherwise, I've had geologists ask me and tell me, well, what do you guys look for? And they're pretty much clueless because they don't really have very significant look or form, like you can color ID it or there's some major feature, whereas the radioactive nature of the thorium associated with the rare earth and the monazite that might be present help you focus. And then the XRF helps you identify the elemental mineral suites that you're looking at. So those 2 tools are significantly important in the exploration, but I don't think that they reduce the risk. I think you have the same risk as anywhere else. They're tools that are helpful to focus on where you should be looking.
So what is the risk, and why are we excited about this project right now, in addition to the surface findings that you've located?
The risk is that this is grassroots exploration. It's not a brownfield. You don't have a mine like Dateline has the Coliseum mine. They have a historic mine and historic activity. On Great Northern's Catalyst Ridge property, the only historic work is some old prospects. And those old prospects were probably related to either exploration for antimony or gold or silver. They had nothing to do with rare earths, because back in those days, nobody cared about rare earths. I mean, rare earths kind of came around. The Mountain Pass mine was initially discovered, and I think the first use of the material was the europium in the color TVs or in paints and different things like that. So that goes back to the 60s. But before the 1960s, the technology of smart bombs and digital technology where we use the rare earth didn't exist. So that demand is recent, the last decades of demand on the rare earth elements, which has spurred a lot of the drive to find critical metals. And I think the key thing about the Mountain Pass area is you have a district and an area where you can generate domestic rare earths. It's already occurring at MP Materials Mountain Pass project. So now what else is there? And I think that's what the push is with all these junior exploration companies. We're in a tier 1 jurisdiction in the United States. So you're investing money. You're not in Africa. You're not in South America. You're not in some place that's very difficult to work where there's political uncertainty. And there's known historic occurrences of rare earths in that region.
By pure proximity to Loxley, which you mentioned earlier in the program, and Dateline just a few minutes ago, can we expect similar geology? Can we expect a real win?
I think the recent discoveries on the Great Northern Project area is going to create a lot of upside for this company, because they have a 1 kilometer structure on their property that has evidence of antimony, gold, and silver. Now, that's a different animal than rare earths. I think the rare earth exploration, based on my understanding of everything, is still in progress. I mean, there was a phase 1 regional first pass review of the property. That phase 1 pass identified areas to go back for a phase 2. That hasn't been initiated yet, but that's going to be up and coming. But I think that the one thing we can put our hats on with Great Northern is they have a significant antimony, silver, gold structure on their property that there's going to be a lot of good news coming out of it. A 1 kilometer size structure is significant. Like Loxley's is maybe 90 or 100 meters of exposure. And there's no relationship. It's not like they're in the same line. They're offset. They might be a couple of kilometers apart, but they're on the south side of Antimony Gulch. This is kind of right in the center of Antimony Gulch, this structure. We were surprised that we found it and that nobody else had already taken this ground and had the mineral rights on it. So that was definitely a big surprise for us and for Great Northern.
So quite likely, and we're both biased, so I'll just go ahead and say it, Great Northern Minerals could be the real story in that area, correct?
It'll be one of the stories. I mean, MP Materials is one of the stories there, but Great Northern will be one of the other big stories in there, along with Dateline and their Coliseum mine and MP Materials. I can't say what's going to happen to Loxley. We can only hope for the best for them. They have a lot of ground and a lot of work to do on a lot of ground.
I want to add one more thing. Gina Reinhardt is Australia's wealthiest individual, the executive chair of Hancock Prospecting, and a major shareholder of MP Materials, which operates the Mountain Pass mine. That's only a good thing because she picks and chooses carefully the projects she aligns herself with around the world.
Well, I think that she's positioned herself in the only rare earth mine that's producing rare earth materials in the United States, at least to date. There's a lot of other things that are interesting and potential and upcoming, but to my knowledge, that's the only one that's going. So she's positioned well.
Greg, it's always great catching up with you. Thanks so much for chatting with me today. I look forward to our next conversation.
Okay, Ellis, thank you. We'll talk to you. Thank you so much.
That was Greg Schifrin, president of Minex Corporation and the U.S. lead for Great Northern Minerals, a company moving fast to develop antimony and rare earth projects right along California's Mountain Pass corridor. Great Northern Minerals trades on the ASX in Australia under the symbol GNM. I'm Ellis Martin, U.S. Strategic Advisor for Great Northern Minerals, and this has been another edition of Money Talk Radio and the Ellis Martin Report. To learn more, visit greatnorthernminerals.com.au. Subscribe to the Ellis Martin Report. It's free. Go to ellismartin.com.